Good evening, boxing fans, and welcome back. Am I the only one who wonders how many times Harold Letterman has uttered the words, "Okay, Jim," during his long and illustrious career as HBO's unofficial scorer?
Harold, what's your final card show?
Okay, Jim. I thought Marco Antonio Barrera certainly was effective enough in the last 5 rounds to win this fight. 116, 111, 8 rounds to 4. Marco Antonio Barrera.
This is Rummy's Corner. So the first fight between Erik Morales and Marco Antonio Barrera, El Terrible against the baby-faced assassin. This rivalry already had roots in a backstory that dated back several years prior to their first meeting inside the ring. And this all started when originally Marco Antonio Barrera was being viewed by many as the natural Mexican heir to Julio Cesar Chavez, and then later he would be replaced as the perceived heir by Erik Morales, and then they had the common link with Junior Jones, who twice defeated Barrera and was stopped in 4 rounds by Morales. So before these two even stepped into the ring together, there was already a good backstory of a rivalry brewing for some time. So prior to the start of this bout, there was already a little controversy going on with the gloves. Morales wanted to use winning brand gloves, and Barrera wanted to use Reyes gloves. And in order to settle the dispute, they wound up ultimately having a coin toss. Barrera won that coin toss, and they wound up using 8-ounce Reyes gloves for the fight. So in round 1, Barrera comes out and he lands the first big combination of the fight. And right here, this really set the pace for the entire evening. Morales would retaliate, and it wound up being a very savage opening round with lots of back and forth flurrying and good tactical aggression. Barrera was pressing and Morales was landing sharp, crisp counters. And already we were in the beginnings of a great fight in the making. In the second round, about a minute in, Barrera would turn it on again and he unleashed some vicious assaults. Morales was having his moments too, but Barrera really was landing some great rights and lefts upstairs and downstairs, and he was beginning to find the mark with that left hook to the body, which would become a major factor in the fight going forward. Morales came out in the third round. He was landing a little more. He was opening the round with a nice long jab. He seemed to be getting his offensive combinations off more effectively and viciously, and Barrera seemed to be throwing a little bit less, but Barrera was still landing some awesome, powerful body shots, and he was really digging in whenever he attacked the body. Round 4 saw Morales able to continue to control most of the action at range, but there were some good exchanges back and forth again. Barrera's commitment to the body continued, and there were these nice long-range punches being put together in bunches from Erik El Terrible Morales. Then in round 5, this wound up being a pretty incredible round all by itself. Morales had seemed to hurt Barrera. Barrera looked really uncomfortable and it looked like maybe he was in a bit of trouble. And Morales followed this up with a very spirited assault, and Barrera's taking all these punches, and then out of nowhere, Barrera tags Morales with this home run shot, and Morales was stopped in his tracks instantly, and this transformed into a Barrera assault. And over rounds 6, 7, and 8, these two continued at it back and forth, a seesaw battle, both of them showing tremendous heart and determination. And it really came down to whether you preferred Morales and his activity rate, or Barrera landing what seemed to be the more effective blows in what round in and round out was a competitive, difficult to score type of fight. Round 9, this wound up being another amazing round. There was so many good moments for both fighters, landing so many hard shots over and over, and then absorbing so many hard shots in return over and over and over. So the 9th round wound up being a tremendous round, and it was capped off by more toe-to-toe action between Barrera and Morales. There was more great action in round 10. Morales would rock Barrera, and he started a really big flurry of punches. Going after Barrera, Barrera seemed like he may have been more hurt from that right hand that started this than he had been by most of the right hands landing prior to that. And then, of course, Barrera would turn the tables once again, and he rocked Morales with some fine work of his own. This was really turning into a crazy fight. Round 11. Heart, grit, courage, determination, and some pretty damn awesome tactical boxing skills mixed in too. Neither of these guys was letting it up to begin the championship rounds. We saw some more great action in this round, and towards the end, there was some really good body work by Barrera, and it left Morales, he looked uncharacteristically in retreat mode. So I think those body shots had really bothered him. And of course, in the 12th and final round, both guys came out firing away. It was another even round, more or less, back and forth, back and forth. So with like a minute left in the round, Barrera hurt Morales with a couple of really great shots, and Morales looked stunned and he started stumbling around the ring a little bit. And Barrera followed this up when he went in for the attack again, and then he appeared to drop Morales. But it turned out that this shouldn't have been ruled a knockdown, that a punch didn't actually land. It was incorrectly ruled a knockdown, but regardless, it was ruled a knockdown. But the point is, Morales had seemed pretty badly hurt by Barrera in the events leading up to this. So the round wound up ending much like it started, with the two of them firing away at each other. But it seemed that Barrera had taken the championship rounds, regardless of the incorrect call by the referee. And anyway, once again, at the end of the fight, here's what HBO's unofficial scorer, Harold Letterman, had to say.
Harold, what's your final card show?
Okay, Jim, I thought Marco Antonio Barrera certainly was effective enough in the last 5 rounds to win this fight. 116, 111, 8 rounds to 4. Marco Antonio Barrera, you gotta call that 12th round 10-8. Mitch called it 10-8. It's a judgment call on Mitch's part. If you go down on the end of a punch, or you go down as a delayed knockdown, or you go to a knee, it's a knockdown. Morales went down. Mitch called it a knockdown. It's gotta be 10-8. So Marco Antonio Barrera, the harder puncher, stunned Morales throughout the last 5 rounds. I thought he won it.
I think Harold's points about the knockdown were spot on. Anyway, the official judges, it wound up being a split decision, 114, 113, once each way, and the deciding judge had it 115 to 112 in favor of El Terrible. Personally, I had Barrera winning the fight. I thought Harold Letterman was much closer to the mark, but then again, this was a very difficult fight to score. So I could see reasonable arguments for 8-4, 9-3, one way or another, because there was so many close and competitive rounds that it was really hard to distinguish who was winning a lot of these rounds. So Morales and Barrera would go on to have one of the most memorable trilogies that I could ever remember seeing unfold, right up there with Holyfield Bowe. Barrera would wind up getting awarded a decision in the second fight, a fight where most observers seemed to believe El Terrible deserved the nod. And then in the third fight, Barrera again got the decision, but this one was pretty clear, I think. Out of the 3 fights they had, I thought that third fight was the easiest one in terms of not having as many difficult to score rounds. The rounds each guy won, I thought, was a little more clearly defined in that fight. So at the end of the day, I had Barrera up 3-0 in the series. I could see you having it 2-1 for Morales, because the first 2 fights I really think could have gone either way. In any case, it was an epic trilogy between these 2 warriors. These days, they kind of get talked in conjunction with Juan Manuel Marquez, and it seems to me these days a lot of people rate Marquez ahead of Barrera and Morales, and I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that a lot of that stems from how each of the 3 Mexican greats fared against Manny Pacquiao, with Marquez obviously doing the best of the 3 and capping it off with the best win any of them had against Pacquiao, when Marquez knocked Pacquiao out cold with a picture-perfect timed punch. I don't necessarily think the way each of them fared against Pacquiao tells the whole story. I think Barrera and Morales both peaked earlier. I think Marquez peaked later and had greater longevity. But I think a lot of people forget that Barrera and Morales were both elite pound-for-pound talents in their own right for a good number of years. In any case, the debate between them, that's something for another episode. Personally, I would accept any order in any combination of any of those three and have no problem with it at all, because I don't think a lot separates Barrera from Morales from Marquez. But I, for one, will never forget the epic battle that took place between Erik Morales and Marco Antonio Barrera. A fight which I think took a lot out of both guys' primes, but a fight that I think largely personifies the greatness of both men's careers. This is Rummy. Thank you for tuning in. Please stay tuned for more episodes in the future. And if you enjoyed this episode, please do subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good night.